If we gained the power to cast a spell and instantly transport ourselves to any destination, essentially making teleportation a reality, the psychological, social, environmental, and scientific impacts would be profound. This ability could reshape not only individual human lives, but also global systems like transportation, energy, weather, and even geopolitics. Let's explore these impacts scientifically, psychologically, and statistically. Psychological and social effects. Instant teleportation would completely change the way humans perceive distance, time, and interaction. Psychological effects. Stress and anxiety reduction. Imagine eliminating the need to commute or travel for long hours. Teleportation could reduce stress associated with traffic, long flights, and crowded public transport. With more time in people's day, individuals might experience greater work-life balance and reduced mental fatigue. Cognitive and spatial awareness. Humans have evolved to navigate space based on memory, geography, and physical exertion. If people could teleport, the brain's need to maintain spatial awareness and mental maps of places would diminish, potentially altering cognitive processes related to memory and spatial orientation, attention span, and patience. Instant gratification from teleportation could affect people's ability to delay gratification and cultivate patience. Psychologists argue that the practice of waiting can lead to deeper appreciation and satisfaction. Teleportation might reduce this ability, reinforcing a culture of instant satisfaction and perhaps diminishing resilience. Social interactions and behavior. Changes in relationships. Distance is often a limiting factor in relationships. Long-distance friendships or family ties could become irrelevant, as teleportation would allow people to visit loved ones in seconds. This would likely strengthen social bonds, but might also increase demands on personal time and privacy, as people could spontaneously appear at your location. Workplace transformation. Teleportation would revolutionize global workforces. Remote work would no longer be necessary because people could instantly attend in-person meetings. International jobs could become as accessible as local ones, leading to an entirely global job market. Privacy concerns. Psychologically, there could be an increase in social anxiety or invasion of privacy. If teleportation became widespread, people would likely struggle to maintain personal boundaries when others can appear unannounced at any moment. This might trigger new social norms, such as strict telecommunication protocols or virtual barriers for privacy. Effects on global energy consumption. Teleportation could lead to a radical reduction in global energy usage related to transportation. Energy and transportation. Global energy savings. Transportation accounts for roughly 20 to 25% of global energy consumption, with the majority of this energy coming from fossil fuels. If people no longer relied on cars, planes, or trains for travel, global energy demand would plummet. The International Energy Agency, IEA, estimates that in 2021, 9.3 billion metric tons of CO2 emissions were from transportation alone. Instant teleportation could eliminate a significant portion of these emissions. Elimination of oil dependency. 97% of the transportation sector relies on oil. Teleportation could eliminate this dependency, reducing geopolitical tensions over oil-rich regions and changing the global economy. Oil prices would collapse, and many industries related to fossil fuel extraction, refining, and shipping would be severely impacted. Impact on infrastructure. Transportation networks. Obsolete roads, railways, airports, and seaports would lose relevance, potentially becoming derelict or repurposed. This would free up vast amounts of land previously used for transportation infrastructure. Urban planning could shift to focus on green spaces, residential areas, and businesses without needing to accommodate vehicles. Power consumption of teleportation. Depending on the energy needed to facilitate teleportation, new sources of energy demand might emerge. If teleportation uses massive amounts of energy, it could create strains on electricity grids and promote renewable energy innovations to support a world where people teleport constantly. Environmental effects, weather and climate. The effects on the environment would be multifaceted, and while teleportation might have positive outcomes in some areas, it could also introduce unintended consequences. Reduction in air pollution. Air quality improvement. Transportation is a major contributor to air pollution, especially in urban areas. The World Health Organization states that 91% of the world's population lives in places where air quality exceeds safe limits, much of this due to vehicle emissions. Teleportation would dramatically improve air quality, reducing smog, respiratory diseases, and environmental degradation. Weather patterns and climate. Weather alteration. While teleportation wouldn't directly affect the weather, the reduction in carbon dioxide emissions and aerosols from transportation could potentially influence global climate patterns. Reductions in fossil fuel burning would help stabilize temperatures and reduce the effects of global warming. However, in some regions, particularly industrialized urban areas, the absence of particulate matter, which sometimes forms clouds and rain, might alter local weather patterns, potentially reducing rainfall in areas that depend on it. Geopolitical and economic effects. Teleportation would have profound economic and political effects. Countries and industries heavily reliant on transportation, tourism, and trade logistics would be reshaped. Tourism and globalization. Boom in tourism. Countries that rely on tourism could experience an explosion in visitors, as barriers to travel like time, cost, and distance would no longer exist. Tourists could visit multiple countries in a single day, and tourism industries would need to adapt to a surge in demand for unique experiences and accommodations. Global economy redefined, supply chains and logistics companies would undergo seismic shifts. Shipping and freight companies would become obsolete as goods could be teleported instantly. Global trade would become instantaneous, potentially collapsing certain industries reliant on transportation logistics, such as shipping, freight, and trucking. Teleportation could further globalize economies, eliminating barriers to commerce, geopolitical borders, challenges to border security. Teleportation would make national borders virtually irrelevant, posing a significant challenge for governments to maintain control over immigration, customs, and law enforcement. Without physical boundaries, national security concerns would increase. New laws would likely emerge to regulate teleportation rights, surveillance, and individual freedoms. Collapse of geographic barriers. The power of geography in shaping politics and trade would disappear. Countries that previously held strategic advantage due to their location, like ports and trade routes, would lose that leverage, while remote, underdeveloped regions might see new opportunities. Scientific and statistical considerations. Energy consumption models. If teleportation required significant energy, there could be scientific limits to how often and how far people could teleport. The cost of energy for personal use might become a concern, with high energy requirements potentially leading to teleportation taxes or regulations to prevent overuse. Scientific studies on human physiology. Instant teleportation could affect the human body in ways that science currently cannot predict. If teleportation involved dematerializing and rematerializing, it could have unknown impacts on molecular structures and the brain. There could be risks of teleportation errors, such as biological mismatches or health risks related to sudden shifts in the body's environment. Population distribution and urban planning. With teleportation, people would no longer need to live near their workplaces or in urban areas. This could lead to a more even population distribution across countries, with people moving to rural or remote areas for space and comfort, while still being connected to urban centers in an instant. Urban sprawl might reverse and cities could shrink as people relocate. Conclusion: a global shift in every aspect. If humans gained the ability to teleport instantly by casting a spell, the psychological, environmental, geopolitical, and scientific changes would be profound. While teleportation might improve air quality, reduce carbon emissions, and free people from the constraints of time and distance, it would also challenge existing systems of governance, energy infrastructure, and social norms. The world would become more connected, but potentially less private, with new complexities arising in how humans interact with one another and the world.